Visit with NFL Network anchor and SiriusXM host Mike Yam. Mike, how you doing, man? Thank you so much for joining us.
Man, it's so good to hear both your guys' voices. Always appreciate the invite. When I heard it was you guys, I got a little blast from the past. And I know it's been a while since you and I have been in the studio together, but great to be with both of you guys.
Yeah, what do you think? Was that about 8 years ago? You and I had a little brief stint?
You know, I tell you what, the only reason why I know it's a little longer than that is because the Pac-12 just had a 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
You're right. It's like knocking on the door of like a decade, which is just wild to think about how time has flown by.
Yeah, I'm looking at a story right now, or I should say a headline, Mike, from Ian Rappaport, with Jimmy Garoppolo available from the 49ers. The Jets still don't appear intent on making a move. They've got confidence in Flacco. In the likely scenario, he starts until Zach Wilson. What's going to happen to Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I was surprised, although maybe not, shouldn't be all that surprised, but once the reports went down about the surgery for Zach Wilson, I just kind of assumed. I was like, well, damn, I mean, we've been waiting on some of this Jimmy news for a while, and there was a part of me that just felt like, hey, once the preseason continues to roll, we could be looking at a situation where they're just trying to figure out, is there going to be a trade partner just based off of injury? Wilson goes down. I guess that game was Friday against the Eagles, and I thought, oh, maybe there's something here. I just kept hearing a good amount of buzz, though, about Flacco. I did float it on one of our shows on NFL Network, and our guys sort of indicated, like, hey, maybe there is something to it, but I'm not surprised that the Jets squashed that down pretty quick.
So is he going to wind up getting cut, and then it's Seattle, or maybe he's just kind of lurking around for a job at this point?
It's how weird is that to think about a guy that's had the success that he's had? And I know a lot of this hinges around the health of that shoulder, and is he going to be able to throw effectively? John, I'm with you, man. Like, I actually think there's a world that's becoming increasingly more likely that Jimmy just gets cut and he's going to have his pick. And, the reports about Miami or Seattle where there's some familiarity, obviously, with McDaniel and what he's doing with the Dolphins. That's a crowded quarterback room. I think he's got a real opportunity, though, if it is Seattle, to actually have an opportunity to get on the field and play. Yeah.
Mike Yam joining us. He's an NFL Network anchor, also host of SiriusXM. Let me ask you this. If I ask you that, how good does Trey Lance have to be for the Niners? I'm going to deciding whether to say make the playoffs or make a run. I'm going to say make a run in the postseason. How good does Trey Lance have to be?
I think he needs to be good, not spectacular, for them to make a run. This defense, guys, I had an opportunity to be there in Santa Clara twice over the last couple of weeks or so. And look, if I'm being totally honest with you, I think there's been definitely some highs from Trey from at least the two practices that I got to watch him. And I kept hearing about, it's not exactly the most positive things and sort of like a boom or bust mentality. I think there's a sense of optimism based off of what we saw in the preseason game the other day. But this defense, guys, I think it's got a chance to be absolutely terrific this season. And if that's the case, if they're going to be as good as I think they can be, I think they got an opportunity to make a run, to your point. The weapons are there. I think Kyle is as great of an offensive mind as there is in the sport. I think he's going to put Trey in some really easy situations. I remember when Trey got drafted, John Lynch had said this a few times, and he was spot on. For a young quarterback, Trey was coming into a place that's ready to win right now and not a rebuild. Like, you look at what Trevor Lawrence, for example, has had to deal with, or even Zach Wilson, who we just talked about. Those situations vastly different than what Trey has got at his disposal. An opportunity to watch, learn a little bit last season around Jimmy, which I think was important for him, especially because he's coming out of a college situation, guys, where he wasn't exactly like he had a ton of playing experience. So I think he's going to be good. And to answer your question, Matt, I think he doesn't have to be great. He just needs to be average, above average for them to make a run. Now, I also don't think that that's what the intent is here either, because this is a roster that is ready to compete, is ready to make a run, and a deep run, if not get to a Super Bowl this year.
Well, and how much of it do you think is the 49ers just hanging their hat on the fact that he's going to get better and may get significantly better from week 1 to week 18?
Yeah, I think they're in a lot of ways you have to assume that's going to happen, especially knowing the lack of experience that he has, the reps that he's going to take, and the reps that he's getting in practice. Look, the Niners could have gone into this, and I don't know how much sense it would have made just based off of what we saw with Jimmy and sort of the farewell tour at the end of last season. But they made a concerted effort to say, keys to the car, Trey, they're yours. You're getting the first-team reps. He needs every single one of those first-team reps. The fact that he didn't have Debo from the start, it's great that they got that deal done. But I'm with you. I think there's going to be consistent growth throughout the course of the season and really in the next few seasons. His athletic ability is clearly elevated versus Jimmy. I think we all kind of understand that, the arm strength that's there. Guys, one of the throws that I saw him make in one of the practices that I was at was impressive because I was there last year, and the fastball that he's got is really significant. Like, Trey's arm is really spectacular. It's a big reason why the Niners ended up moving up and drafted him. There was an intermediate pass. It was right over the outstretched hands. I forget who the linebacker was, right into Brandon Ayuk. Those little touch passes, to me, I was more impressed by that than any of the fastball stuff. Like, if he continued, like, to me, that was a growth moment that I saw. Look, I'm not there every day, but I saw the throws that he made last year at practice, and then what I saw in that first day this season, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if he would have made that throw a season ago. So to your point, like, I think there's more progression and way more upside over the next few weeks of the season, and certainly by the end of the year.
NFL Network anchor and SiriusXM host Mike Yam joining us on 95.7 The Game. The one question I like to ask guess about the 49ers with Trey Lance at quarterback as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo is, how much different do you think it's going to look, if at all, between Trey Lance this year and Jimmy Garoppolo the past few years?
We asked a couple different players, and we asked Kyle that question. And what's interesting is hearing the different answers. Kyle was like, no, not all that different. I can't help but think it's got to be different, right? Like, just from a skill set standpoint, his use of his legs and that athletic ability, his mobility alone, I think, changes the complexion of this team. We asked Brandon Ayuk that question. Brandon was like, no, it's different. It's definitely going to be different. And I think, you'll probably see maybe some more explosive plays in this offense, his ability to go downfield a little bit more, a growing chemistry with some of these wide receivers. I think Kyle's probably going to bake in, and I don't know how much different this will be, but I think he'll bake in some easy throws where, depending on the game situation, Kyle, look, it's quick pass to Debo. Go figure it out, right? Like, where it limits some of the reads and the complexity that maybe he just needs a little bit of a mental break throughout the course of the games. And I think a lot of young quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, head coaches, they try to limit some of that stuff for their younger guys just to give them a little bit of a break inside those games. I think you'll see a little bit of that as well in this offense. Jimmy understood it. Jimmy's a master of what was expected of him. So I can't help but think that Kyle's got to think a little bit differently as he's, making those decisions within his play calling.
Mike, as you prepare for the season, I got to ask you, the Niners and the Rams, of course, Green Bay, they still have Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady came back. But as you look at the NFC, I'm not even going to ask you about the AFC because there's probably 12 teams that think they can make the playoffs in the AFC. But in the NFC, Who do you see as maybe a surprise team that could be pretty good that nobody's thinking could be good this season?
Ooh, it's a great question. We've gone back and forth on a lot of this stuff. I think to your point, it's put the teams in the hat in the AFC, and you can pluck them out, and you can make a legit argument for a lot of them. I think in the NFC, it's a little bit harder. I think the migration of talent from the NFC to the AFC in this offseason hurts the conference for sure, number one. And number two, I think, the rich are in some ways getting richer by not doing anything. I think the status quo kind of keeps you in a situation, guys, where, you look at some of these teams and you go, oh, okay, like they didn't do much this offseason, but look at how much talent some of the other teams lost. I will say this, one team, just generally speaking, that I think, two teams that I would point to that I think, has a real chance. Like, I don't, on the AFC side, and look, the Saints and Chargers to me would be the two teams heading into the season that I would point to that could make a run. I think the health of Jameis is certainly something to keep an eye out on. And, the fact that they've had some success against the Bucs, like they're not going to shy away. I think Tampa Bay, some of the losses, the Ryan Jensen loss at center for them, I think is going to be magnified in a big way. And then when I look at the AFC, specifically the AFC West, I really like what the Chargers have been able to do this offseason. So for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, I think they got an opportunity this season.
Great stuff, Mike. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the season, man.
You as well, guys. Always appreciate the invite and stay healthy.
All right. That's Mike Yam, NFL Network anchor. He also is a host on SiriusXM.